Welcome to The Explainer. I'm so glad you're here because today we are digging into something that is literally going to change the way you look at plant care. We're unpacking the ultimate science-backed hack for thirsty plants, superabsorbent polymers, or SAPs for short. If you've ever struggled to keep your garden green, or, if you just love when high-tech chemistry meets everyday nature, you're absolutely going to want to stick around for this. Let's get right into it. We've all been there, right? You put tons of love, sweat, and tears into your garden or your houseplants, and then you got to go out of town for a week. Or maybe an unexpected heat wave hits. You come back and boom, your beautiful plants are just completely wilted. It's the worst feeling. But what if you could keep those plants hydrated for weeks without even touching a watering can? Sounds like magic, right? Or maybe some late-night infomercial pitch, but I promise you, it's not. It is pure applied chemistry. And the crazy thing is, this solution has actually been around for a while. To see where this all started, we have to rewind to the early 1960s. The U.S. Department of Agriculture was hard at work researching materials to help soil hold onto water better. And what they came up with was a resin based on polymers grafted right onto a starch molecule backbone. The result? A material that could absorb and firmly lock in over 400 times its own weight in water. Seriously, 400 times. Just picture a tiny little granule pulling in that much liquid and just holding onto it. That massive historical breakthrough set the stage for the modern gardening hack we're looking at today. So what exactly are we talking about here? Superabsorbent polymers, or SAP, are high molecular materials capable of absorbing and retaining hundreds of times their mass in liquid. But let's bring that down to earth. Think of them like this. When you mix them into your dirt, they act as tiny, rechargeable mini reservoirs. So you water your plants or it rains, and these polymers swell right up, storing all that excess water. Then, over the next couple of weeks, as the surrounding soil dries out, the SAP slowly and steadily releases that stored water directly back to the plant's roots. It's basically an automated underground irrigation system that works entirely on its own. And this brings us to the brilliantly incredible science that makes those mini reservoirs possible. There are four main principles at play. First up, ionic attraction. SAPs contain ionic groups that form charged ions in water, literally pulling in the polar water molecules. Second is hydrophilicity, which just means the molecular structure is custom-built to form strong hydrogen bonds with water, grabbing tightly onto it. Third, osmotic pressure pulls the water into the polymer to balance out the high concentration of ions inside. And finally, hydration expansion. Once the water gets in there, the polymer chains stretch and expand into this stable gel, safely locking all that liquid in place without losing its physical structure. It's just brilliant. Okay, let's move on to section 1, sodium versus potassium, and why this is a crucial distinction. Now, before you go ripping open a baby diaper, which, yes, uses absorbent polymers, and dumping the contents into your favorite potting soil, you absolutely need to know the fundamental difference between these two chemicals. On the left, we have sodium polyacrylate. This is the stuff used in disposable diapers and sanitary napkins. It's fantastic at absorbing liquid fast, but it relies on sodium ions. If you put that in your soil, it carries a massive risk of causing soil salinization. Basically, you'd be salting the earth and killing your plants. No good. But on the right, we have potassium polyacrylate. This is our agricultural hero. It uses potassium cations instead of sodium, completely eliminating the risk of salt damage and actually making it perfectly safe and even beneficial for plant life. So the really crucial point here isn't just that potassium polyacrylate is safe, but that it actively improves your soil ecosystem over time. This specific polymer naturally degrades in the soil over a period of months. And look at what it actually breaks down into: ammonium nitrogen, water, and potassium ions. Guys, these are literal fertilizers. So not only does it act as a mini reservoir for months, endlessly cycling between absorbing and releasing water, but when it finally does break down, it serves as a slow-release fertilizer that feeds your plants. Talk about a win-win. Next up, section 2, environmental nuance and why particle size matters. Okay, so choosing potassium polyacrylate is step 1. Step 2 is a bit of an environmental adaptation trick. You need to understand the physical trade-off based on your specific soil conditions. If you have deep, heavy soil, it puts a lot of physical pressure on anything buried inside it. In that kind of tough environment, you need large particles. They have stronger adhesion and can physically resist that heavy soil pressure, meaning they won't just get crushed and lose their ability to hold water. On the flip side, if you're using loose potting soil or maybe a sandy environment where pressure just isn't an issue, you're going to want to use small particles. Smaller particles have a much higher maximum water absorption rate. They take in water faster and hold way more overall volume. So the pro tip here is always match the particle size to the weight and pressure of your soil.
All right, Section 3, the step-by-step application guide.
Now that we've got a handle on the chemistry and the physics, how do we actually do this? There are 4 primary operational steps, and it really depends on where your plant is in its life cycle. For annual crops, you can start right at the very beginning with seed coating, literally mixing the SAP directly with the seeds so they have moisture from day one. Next up is seedbed nursery mixing. This involves blending the polymer evenly into the nursery soil to ensure those fragile little seedlings don't dehydrate. Now, when you're moving a plant to its permanent home, you'll use basal application. This means mixing the SAP right into the bottom of the planting hole so it sits directly at the root zone where the plant needs it most. And finally, for existing plants or perennial trees, you use a method called top dressing. You just dig a small trench near the roots, mix the SAP into that soil, cover it up, and water it thoroughly. The absolute key takeaway across all these steps: you have to make sure the polymer is mixed deep into the soil right near the roots, not just sprinkled on the surface.
Moving to our final part, Section 4, the agricultural impact.
Now, you might be sitting there wondering, is this just a neat trick for my indoor pothos, or does this actually work out in the real world? Well, the sheer magnitude of the real-world results is honestly astounding. When potassium polyacrylate is introduced to sandy environments, which, as we know, notoriously drain water instantly, the soil's water retention increases by a staggering 85%. That completely changes the game for farming in arid regions. And it directly translates to more food production. Just look at the California melon farmers using this technology. They saw a 70% increase in their crop yield. Because the plants aren't suffering through those stressful mini droughts between waterings, they grow faster, they stay healthier, and they produce massively more fruit. This isn't just a garden hack, it's a proven agricultural revolution. Which brings us to our final thought. We've explored the chemistry, we've learned the absolute vital difference between sodium and potassium, we've figured out how to match particle sizes to soil types, and we've seen the massive commercial yields. So, if a handful of this polymer can turn a sandy desert into a high-yield greenhouse, how will you transform your own backyard? Whether it's keeping your tomatoes alive during a summer vacation or making sure your new tree saplings actually thrive, you now have the exact science-backed playbook to make it happen. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you next time.